Everybody listen to We're Not Wizards. Because we are the best. And we're not wizards. No matter what anybody says. Goodbye.
Welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host. And it could be Tuesday, it could be Thursday, it could be Friday, it could be Wednesday. Occasionally it might be Saturday, but after all, it's whatever you want, because after all, it is your podcast. Now, joining me today is a man who you can often see him kind of, he's a man about town. He kind of, you could say he likes to kind of maybe get involved in the kind of the movies. You can say he maybe likes to get involved in kind of producing and maybe filming these movies. And at the end, when he's produced and he's filmed these movies, you can hear him shouting out in a loud voice, "That's a wrap!" Because joining me from Diacritical Games is Adam Sadiq. So there you go. Hello, Adam.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing well. It's very cold here. It was warm this morning, but now it's really cold.
How cold is it? Here's your first challenge.
How cold
is it in centigrade, Adam? Don't be using your American nonsense.
You can't drop that on me. I don't have a calculator handy.
Right, okay. Well, how cold is it in Fahrenheit?
It is about 30 degrees.
Is it? So it's like -2, roughly. -2 centigrade in real proper temperature. Have you had snow then?
Tomorrow, actually, we're supposed to get snow. But I will be leaving town, which is nice.
All right, so you're just running away from the snow.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you used to the snow? Is snow something that happens on a regular basis, or is it going to be like in the UK where as soon as we get snow, we just totally freeze up and then everybody buys all the bread that there is and everybody freaks out about it? Or are you able to cope with this type of weather?
Well, there's no... the getting all the bread in the supermarket is a pretty universal thing, but we are definitely more used to the snow here.
Well, there you go. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you for coming on the show. I bet it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
For people who haven't listened before, and Adam's wondering why he's even joining us after the chat that we've had before the show's even started, the reason that we do this is because there's not enough. Well, we've not done enough podcasts yet. That's the new line. We're hoping to do lots more. But the reason we want to do the more podcasts is we get to speak to people like Adam about their game, which is going to be coming to Kickstarter very, 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 very soon. In fact, probably by the time you're listening to this. And the second reason that we want to do this is because it's fun. There you go. But again, thanks for coming on. I guess what we normally like to do is we like to find out a little bit more about kind of how you kind of got involved in the hobby. So I guess we want to have a little bit of a look at the kind of the screenwriting of the past before we look at the production of the present and the film reviews of the future. So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you got into the hobby in the first place, please?
So, once upon a time, long time ago, really not that long ago, but...
Were you 90 or something?
I'm trying to give it that cinematic feel.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Do you want to start? Do you want to do like a movie voice? And just...
In a world where...
Exactly. In a world which is full of trees comes a man bringing cardboard. His name is Adam. He's fighting against the world where entertainment doesn't exist, and he's bringing crunchy celluloid with a cardboard twist. On you go.
Oh, that is wonderful.
That's the Kickstarter video done.
So my main introduction to modern board games was in college. I had always played like a little bit of board games. Now I'm a very competitive person. Anyone will tell you that that knows me. So I've always loved games. I've loved things like that. Board games are always fun, but this whole new world of board games, because it is truly, truly crazy. One of my really good friends, my high school friends, just, brought over a board game one day when we were both in college. He's like, there are all these games out there, and this is one that I bought. I'm really getting into this hobby. So we played, I don't even remember what game it was. If I had to guess, I think it was King of Tokyo, or maybe it was King of New York. One of those two. Or maybe something completely different. I'm totally off base. But that was one of the earlier games that I played. I do remember that. But it was a very nice coincidence as well. The apartment that I lived in was really close to this board game kind of coffee shop, bar. Basically, some guy in Omaha, which is where I went to high school, or like elementary school, high school, college. He had a huge collection of games, and he opened up this board game bar, coffee place, library. He had probably over 1,000 games, and it's crazy. They're just all in shelves. It's awesome. But I found out, my friend told me, he was like, there are all these games. We got to go check out this place sometime. So, and like I said, luck would have it that I lived pretty close within walking distance. So I really just started to make a habit of visiting this board game place and learned a lot of different games, met a lot of cool people. That was just a really good introduction to the hobby, and pretty much never looked back since.
How do you decide what to play? Because I don't have as many games maybe as people expect, because I've been trimming down the collection a bit. So I've maybe got about 7,000. No, I mean about 50. But when you're faced with 1,000 board games, where do you start? Do you just pick the top left and kind of work all the way through? Or were you taking recommendations for people as to what games to try?
Yeah, usually recommendations are a really good way to go. The staff was always really helpful in that way. They'd have staff picks up on a shelf. They had everything sectioned out by kind of theme, so you could have 2-player games, economy games, ancient history games, train games, which are obviously, there's a ton of those. It's funny seeing niche games having whole shelves for them, ancient Roman waste removal games.
I know, it's kind of like a whole thing. It's like ancient Aztec games. There's not going to be that many of them. It's 15 or something like that. It's just let's face it, kind of dystopian future has got a whole entire section. It's not just got a shelf.
That's got a whole store. Yeah,
it's practically as a welcome to dystopian board games shop, and it's okay, which way we go? I'll just come in here. That'll be fantastic. Was there any ones that kind of stuck out for you that you kind of became kind of firm favourites when you were starting to play?
One of the first games that I ever fell in love with was Camel Up. I had it won. I'm pretty sure it won Spiels des Jahres. That the year that I really started to get into board games. So I know I'd heard about this game. I found it at the game store and I played it. And it's just been one of those games that I bought immediately. And I always love to break it out when I have 6 or 8 people over for a game night, because it's one of those super easy, light, fun, fast games, and we always love to get into characters and yell at our camels, root for the underdogs, that kind of thing. we get into the storylines of things way too much.
Did you make up kind of stories? You didn't give them voices, did you? Did you give them voices?
Camels can't talk, so
that's not true.
No.
Well, maybe it is not true. If a camel had a voice, what kind of voice would it be? I don't know, but let's not have questions like that. This is a show about tabletop, not about making up stuff and nonsense. Did that encourage you to get your own collection? I mean, having access to... Because I know people that they don't have a massive collection of games themselves, but they end up playing a lot of games because they're the people that are quite open to kind of playing anything that comes along. And I know a lot of people, like, you know, they have massive collections, and they are kind of like, they're kind of like almost like the Games Bank. I mean, it's like you're curating a collection for people to play with you, and not necessarily curating a collection for you to collect yourself, because otherwise it'll never get played. So did you end up kind of forming quite a large collection because you had pretty much this kind of cornucopia Adam's Cave on kind of like your doorstep?
Yeah, I definitely, once I moved away, because that was when I was in Omaha, I'm in Kansas City now. When I moved away into my own apartment, in that I started to like buy my own games, because there was no place in Kansas City that was like close and similar and like easy to convince people to go to.
Was there local clubs that you were kind of getting involved in, local groups that you managed to kind of become part of in the area when you joined?
Yeah, I actually met one of my best group of friends in Kansas City through an event like that. It was actually a designer night for board games. So that was back when That's a Wrap was really in a very kind of embryonic stage. And I took it to this, and these people, they had their own games. They played my game, I played their game, and they're like, hey, we meet on every Sunday at this coffee shop just to jam out and work on games. They were primarily like digital designers, and I have not a clue about computers at all, but there was still people would work on like video games, board games, that kind of thing. So I started going to this Sunday coffee kind of meetup, and yeah, now they're just like a really close group of friends, which is awesome. We play Dungeons and Dragons together, try to do game nights, Super Smash Bros. Nights, that kind of thing. And beyond that, I've also found other groups as well to play games with, which is really nice.
Does that help with kind of like planning your strategy for kind of like the play testing of that sort of?
Yes, so much. I've made so many people that I know in like who are heavy gamers just play my game so many times.
I mean, have you always kind of done design? Is that a wrap? Is that kind of like the fourth or fifth design that you've looked at, or was that the one that's always been there at the back of your head?
This is my first game.
All right.
Yeah, is the first one I ever came up with, and now I have like 10 other ideas, but time, energy, money wise right now, That's a Wrap is it.
And how did you come up with the idea?
So the time in my life where I really started getting into board games was also a time in my life where I was really getting into movies. Like, I was obsessed with award shows, what's going to win the Oscar, that kind of thing. And I was literally walking to work one day, just did a college internship, and this thought hit me of a way to make a board game that kind of married the worlds of like board games and movies, because I was not aware of any games about movies at the time. I have since found out there are a lot of games about movies, but
yeah, I've seen that a lot. But I think you get that kind of like in kind of most walks of life. I think
definitely.
When I used to sell websites for a living, there'd be somebody that would phone up and they would go like, "Right, I've got an idea. It's like eBay, but..." And then that was it, and that was their idea. And it's, or or we could do auctions, or you could order food online, okay, like this one. No, but it's different to that kind of thing. So I think it's, I don't know. There's a couple of issues with finding games of a certain genre, is that I don't think they're particularly categorized. Like, I know we joked earlier on about having kind of like a dystopian future type game thing, but actually in terms of categorizations of games, I don't think they're actually categorized based on potentially the theme and or the mechanics. It's usually the mechanics. You know, I mean, if people said, like, I want to be, you know, let's talk about kind of like deck building, you know, people would say, oh, well, Dominion, or they would talk about Clank, or they would talk about Star Realms or something like that. But if you break that down, that's like a fantasy realm, space, you know, kind of, you know, it's kind of like different, you know what I mean? It's like, it's different to categorize it. So when people say to me, like you said, oh, I didn't realize there were so many kind of board games to do with, you know, or tabletop games to do with movies, I'm kind of like, well, that's kind of fair enough, because even if you try to look at kind of like Board Game Geek, I still kind of get the sweats when I type in Board Game Geek into the browser, because I realise it's like I'm going to have to navigate this thing. And, you know, all I do is I end up just clicking, you know, the list between the hotness of the hundreds. I just click between publisher and, you know, board game name, and that's kind of it. And then I just close my browser and kind of run away. So I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, unless you're kind of like looking up, specifically searching kind of movie based anything, or, you know, that kind of theme, anything, and you could get like a different theme that could have totally different mechanics in it. So it's like totally thing. But you had your flash in the pan idea kind of thing.
Yep.
And how quickly was it before you had a kind of a working kind of prototype, before that kind of evolved a little bit? Was it relatively quickly?
So actually, it's kind of interesting. The main catalyst for me kind of creating the game was I had that idea, and then, you know, ideas are cheap. You know, you can have 1 million of them. The reason that this one like really got to be like a thing was because I found a board game design contest put on by some like big board game corporation. I don't remember which one exactly it was, but it was like, submit your games. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll come up with the game based on like this one that I just created. So I kind of like put the rules together, made like index cards with this stuff on it, submitted the game, obviously failed horribly, but that was because the game was like maybe 1% done at that point, and I had no idea. I was like, yeah, this game's great. And like, I'd played it a few times, and it was like, I was as a babe in the woods with the board game community. I had no idea how much of an amateur I truly was.
I don't think you do. I think I think it's expected that people have followed kind of basic rules and stuff like that. I remember saying this, but, you know, people talk about, well, have you read the works, you know, Jamie Stegmaier's blog on
absolutely
Kickstarter, or have you read the stuff by James, you know, Matthew, and folk are like, unless you're aware of their existence when you walk into the hobby in the first time, I mean, I have spoken to quite a few people whose exposure to the hobby has only really occurred after they designed the game, and it wasn't something that happened kind of like before they did it, you know. So I kind of completely understand where, you know, folk have said, well, I wasn't, you know, I put together a game and kind of like, I just did it, and kind of it wasn't ready, but I didn't know which kind of direction to go. So you sent it off. He came back with a nice, polite note, laughing, and then. And then did you go back and did you put it back together and say, right, okay, let's actually start to think this through logically, or did you just put it aside in a drawer and went, right, okay, game design, it's not for me, and just kind of left it for a while?
No, I was not expecting to get anything from this anyway. Honestly, I treated it kind of as a springboard from to go from idea to actually a thing. So now I had this like very basic prototype, and I was like, let's just keep running with it. I'm really having fun designing it, fun playing it with my friends. I love puzzles. I love being able to like break things and fix things. So the idea of game design is always very attractive to me. Kind of taking this idea and finding what is the way to make this the best that it possibly can be. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that really just kind of started on the journey, and it kind of, meandered on. I was in college, so like if people knew me, they knew that I had like a board game. I upgraded from index cards to clip art, printed out at the local FedEx. Then I cut it out using my own like scissors, and always took like 2 hours. I graduated college. I moved to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like I said, I met my game group. I started, trying to really shop it around, get it ready, just keep working on it, keep designing. And then I got to the point where I said, I am really comfortable with where the design is right now. I am ready to find an artist. And that was, I do credit that the decision to find an artist as the true tipping point from this being like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. Like, this is a real choice that I am making.
Well, because art's expensive, let's face it. I mean, if you're finding an art, I mean, it's not like, what did you do? Well, I went, got a coffee, and I was needing those shoes I saw in the window. Yeah, and so I went and got them because my old shoes were kind of like a bit done. And then I went out and spent $1,500 on art because I was bored. It's not like that, is it? I mean, that's when you're kind of committing to the project. I know of a lot of people who have gone as far as creating prototypes and still not, like you said, they used like the stock clip art because once you're actually getting an artist involved, then it has to be. I mean, it's almost a case of you have stepped out the plane with the parachute on, and now you're just going to see how you kind of land. I guess when it kind of gets to that, with the kind of the art side of things, were you looking to go for like a particular style? I mean, was that led? How much of it was influenced by your vision for it, and how much did the kind of the artist effectively bring to the table? And did they influence the kind of the overall look of the game in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah. So, my artist is she is a mind reader. It is incredible. I was looking at a bunch of, freelance artists in Kansas City. It was really important to me to stay local because I think maybe part of that is because I'm a big control freak and I want everything to be within arm's length of me. I want to be able to meet in person, look at things kind of like in a physical sense. That was really important to the creative process of the game. So, like I said, I was looking local. I found someone who had graduated from a local art school, like an art college. I saw her portfolio online. I reached out with an email, said, hello, this is the project that I'm working on. Here's kind of like some cards I have right now. Here's like a very preliminary rule book. Like, do you think this is something that you might be interested in? And she was, very tentatively interested. So we met up at like a coffee place and just like chatted through everything. And yeah, we kind of got to this point. It's like, all right, let's go, let's do this. Yeah. And from there, the style that I was going for, what she had really matched kind of what was in my mind's eye. I wanted something, the only guidance that I really gave her to start was I'm looking for something very colorful. I wanted it to be very like, Hollywood, California, those kinds of pastel-y, beachy, sunset type colors. Yeah. And I also kind of used a reference for Grand Theft Auto. I liked the character designs of that. It was cartoonish, but in a realistic sense. It wasn't like, I didn't want anything hyper realistic, but I also didn't want anything super cartoony.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
You're talking about whenever you kind of boot up the game on Grand Theft Auto 5, you kind of get like the illustrations kind of thing, yeah?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
All right, okay.
And yeah, so beyond that, I really gave her my only other guidance really besides that was I wanted a lot of diversity within the characters, because I think that's something you don't see a lot in board games sometimes, and that can be I just wanted to make a game that had that, because that kind of thing was important to me. And also because I was making a game about making movies, you know, you see a lot of backlash about like movies and especially award shows favoring like white people over everyone. Like, I think the time of this was that the Oscars So White kind of fiasco that was going on. So I wanted to make this movie making world where there was a lot of diversity, because I thought that would be a cool way to, you know, this is how things could be, you know, movies with all kinds of different, and we do have that. Like, I think like I watched a lot of movies. I saw probably, I want to say like 150 movies last year. Not in theaters, but just like for the first time. And, you know, they're doing a good job, I think, of movies today having more diversity. But, yeah, like I said, I just wanted to kind of bring that to the table. So my only guidance to her was, I want more diversity. I want a lot of diversity. And she was totally on board with that. And that was awesome. But besides that, we played through the game once, so she could kind of get a feel. I gave her the names of all of the cards and what they do. And I was kind of you know, go wild, you know, use your artistic sensibilities to come up with something. So she went away. She came back. We were meeting kind of interspersed throughout all this, but ultimately we came up with a sketchbook. So she had a sketchbook with all of the sketches, about 100 unique illustrations, over 100 unique illustrations between like the genre cards, actors, scripts, studio meddling cards. And yeah, they were all incredible, even in black and white form. I still carry her sketchbook around to conventions, and it has actually brought in a lot of people. She's incredibly talented. And from there it was like, all right, these look amazing. And then she did line work to make it easy to digitally color them, and then she put the color on, and then all the graphic design came. And she also did the graphic design. She is basically my one-stop shop for everything that I don't do, which is a lot. She does the art, graphic design. She designed my Kickstarter page.
All right.
All that kind of thing. It really is just kind of a two-person show, me and her, which is exciting, exhausting, and everything in between. But really, like I said, this art style is really 100% her own, and I just love how it integrates with the game. And all of the ideas within the cards, I had, you know, just a few small minor edits, but really not that many. Her artistic instincts were incredible, and she really came up with an awesome product. And I think the art is just so much of a reason that I think people are going to respond really well to this game. And I honestly couldn't be happier with how it turned out.
Did it give you ideas in terms of the mechanics of the game to add in kind of additional mechanics or ideas into the game at all?
As far as the art?
Yeah. I mean, did it kind of like give you, okay, maybe do this with this, or maybe add this in, or, you know, change kind of how the scoring went, or adding kind of different components, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely through just talking with her, going through, you know, the art and all that, we definitely came up with some really good ideas. Of course, game design is never ever finished. And once the art was done, I still had changes that I made. Of course, those changes had to really be made with respect to the art that was already finished. I didn't want to change anything totally that would require a total art rework. But one of my biggest changes was actually, I don't know, probably it was after all the art was done. It was fairly recent. It was probably like 5 or 6 months ago. I made like one change that tipped the game over into the point where I was like, okay, it's ready. I am 100% comfortable with how it is, and I am ready to throw it out to the market, as it were. Because, before then, there's like, oh, there's like, the game is great, except like this one thing that I'm furiously trying to fix, and then I kind of figured out the magic key for that aspect, and it made the game 1,000% better. And I'm like, all right, there it is. That's a wrap, as they say. Except that's actually not true, because designing the game is like maybe 25% of what's going on.
Yeah. How have you found kind of creating noise and getting people kind of interested in playing the game outside the kind of the immediate kind of play testing circles? Trying to get kind of building interest in it. How have you found that?
It's tough. Like I said, it's a 2-person job, although I do all the traveling and the marketing aspect. Like, she does the art and the design and stuff. I do the marketing and the business side, which is, a perk of being a business major in college. But I'm a little more familiar with that. But yeah, the marketing aspect is something that was very, very difficult for me to kind of get into. But I've come into it a little more. I'm getting definitely more comfortable with it. A lot of taking the game to conventions. Yeah. That was always cool. I started, the first ever convention I went to was this teeny tiny one in Kansas City. It was really the perfect way to just kind of dip my toe in the water, see, this is how it works to go to a convention such as this. Like I said, very small. Just set up my game for like one day, and then had other things to do that weekend. So it was really just a one-day deal. And then from then, it was like I got very comfortable with kind of the convention aspect. So I've been to a bunch of different conventions since then, and those are always really good opportunities to connect with people, get them aware of the game, and just like some of the best ideas have come from playtesting at conventions as well. I do love going to conventions. I actually am going to one this weekend, which is nice, a convention just before the launch of the campaign. So hopefully I'm hoping to grab some, first day one backers this weekend. Kind of a last ditch dash to the finish line.
And what's it like kind of getting kind of feedback from complete strangers? I mean, do you have to kind of detach yourself? Because, you've been involved in the project for a while. So do you have to kind of almost cut your emotions away from it so that, if people are getting kind of like really, really excited about it? Because, okay, there's two ways I look at it. Somebody could come along and go, look, it's, this isn't for me. It looks okay, but it's really not my bag. And it's like, well, why is it? It's like, well, I don't like this particular mechanic. It's not my bag. But on the other side of it, I've also seen people be victim of the hype side of things, where you get 4 or 5 people that go, this is absolutely amazing. This is the best thing that I've ever kind of played. And then you almost get a case that you kind of rest on your laurels a bit because you've had such kind of good feedback. I mean, has it been strange kind of having to deal with kind of not people that you've got maybe a little bit of a longer term kind of relationship? It's kind of like, straight in, kind of straight out, kind of play test, kind of quick buddy type scenario.
Definitely. Yeah, there's definitely like a really good balance in between those. You don't want the people who are like, I asked, we play a game and I'm like, all right, what's good about, what would you change? And they're like, oh no, it was great. There's nothing. And it's like, come on, like there's gotta be gotta be like something, especially like in those early stages. Like now if someone says that I can like breathe a little bit, just like there's no glaring issues, but like, you know, early before when I knew there were problems, if someone was like, oh yeah, there's nothing, it's like, you know, there's definitely things like I need the feedback. But then there's also those people who are just adamantly opposed to the game, and that's something I've definitely had to come to terms with. This is a game that really is it has elements that very, very, very serious gamers may not like as much. There's some dice rolling, some take that mechanics in the form of, like I kind of mentioned, the studio meddling. You can have the studio meddle with someone's movie, you know, get rid of their actors or their scripts or tank their profitability or that kind of thing. And like the cards are fun and thematic, but if you don't like games where, you know, someone can play a card on you, I can see how someone might have, you know, kind of an opposite reaction to this game. But the best thing that I've ever heard from a playtester, and what I always strive to hear, not like always strive to hear, but it is really nice to hear when I play with someone and they say, you know, this isn't my kind of game, but it is very well designed. And like, it's a good game. Like, I prefer something different, but I think you've designed something really nice. Like, that is my favorite kind of feedback, which sounds kind of weird, but that's how I know that. I know, like, that if someone says that, then it means something for real.
I think with so many games out there nowadays, there's two sides of it. I don't think it's physically possible for everybody to pick up on every game that's being created. And I also know that there is a lot of, like with video, I mean, if you look at the video game industry, yeah, there is a kind of a general thing where you do get people talking about kind of like their piles of shame. Mm-hmm. Look at all the video games that I've got. I need to invest kind of 40 hours in order to play all of these games. And, you know, Sony and Microsoft know it, so they'll often put a game that's, you know, reviewed really, really well on a kind of a low price, because they know if they stick something on at $25, you'll get a pile of people kind of not wanting to buy it. I reckon on the board game side of things, there is the cult of the new, but there's also people that are thoroughly aware that they do have maybe 10% or 20% or 40% of their collection hasn't really got to the table, and they've not really had $50 or $60 or $20 worth of fun out of it. So I think some people they're a lot more quicker to shut something down if it's compared to, you know, if it's close to something that they've potentially not had a good time with previously, right, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I heard somebody talking about kind of like putting kind of, you know, talking about worker placement and having, you know, something like, say, you know, having Scythe there and saying it's an area control game, and putting it next to, you know, a game like maybe Cry Havoc, which is kind of like area control game, but they're kind of completely different kind of games if you're just kind of matching them up to being kind of war gamey type things with area control. I mean, you could put them in the same bag together, but they are completely different games. So I can see some people kind of protecting themselves from saying, right, I don't need this one because it's kind of similar to this, I think, and which is kind of how they kind of protect themselves. I see it all the time. You know, it's just one of these things.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of how the game plays, let's talk about that. Let's hear your pitch, young man. You know, if I was an aspiring movie producer, let's hear it. You've probably practiced, potentially not in front of a mirror, potentially maybe in front of a mirror, but let's hear this pitch. What do you do? And that's a wrap.
All right. Well, That's a Wrap is a card drafting, dice rolling, movie making game for 2 to 5 players. You take on the role of movie directors who have been hired by a major movie studio. And the goal of the game is to be the director who wins the most Oskie awards by the end of your contract with this movie studio. And kind of the story of the game is only that director who has the most Oskies at the end of the contract will get to keep their job and everyone else gets fired. So each year, each round, the game is played over 4 rounds, the players will each make a movie. And you make a movie, you see which scripts and which actors are available for you to bid on, and then you choose the genre of the movie you want to go for. You know, do you want to go for a money-making horror movie or an awards-winning drama? You kind of make that choice based on what the economy is. Everyone chooses their genre. You bid on the scripts and the actors. The scripts and the actors are all kind of like archetypes, like a child actor or a respected elder or an action star, that kind of thing. The scripts are all kind of movie ideas like sci-fi, western, that kind of thing. So you get some really fun combinations from the bidding aspect of the game. After all the movies are kind of filled up with, like, they got a script and an actor, you go on to the studio meddling phase. This is when you can play a card on yourself. You can help your movie or kind of mess with someone else's. This is the fun part. You know, you kind of have your idea for this movie, and then boom, suddenly it's black and white. Boom, suddenly it's gone from a comedy to a horror, that kind of thing. Or, you know, you give your own movie best original song or best cinematography. You kind of think, like, what would that look like? After the studio, you release your movies to the theaters, you make money, you roll the dice, see kind of how it ends up. Your movie can be anywhere from a flop to a smash hit, and each tier kind of brings you a certain amount of money and influence. And then after the profit phase, you go on to the Oskies. You can nominate each category of your movie for an award. And if you roll high enough, you're considered nominated. You get an Oskie, or basically a victory point. And if you're also the highest roll above that threshold, you get an additional one because you won the award.
All right. Okay.
Basically, yeah, play goes like that for 4 rounds.
That sounds very simple and straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, once you get there's a decent amount of rules. I really wanted this game to be a good bridge between party games and heavy Euros, because I feel like most movie games either fall on one end of that spectrum, and I have not found a good, like, mid-weight, pretty casual movie game, but still has game aspects. That's not just, like, pitch a script idea and it's Cards Against Humanity style, like, someone chooses a winner. Like, this is more of a game kind of thing. So I did want something in that middle tier, but it is fairly simple. Once you get through the first round of playing, you can just go through it really easily. And that's something I'm proud of.
Because you want something that's kind of like people can just... It's like they can play it before they play maybe a much longer game, or they kind of use it as a kind of like a palate cleanser at the end of something else as well. Or they can just play it all night if they want. Yeah, if they're not feeling kind of like wanting something kind of like completely heavy. In terms of the markets for pricing, what are you currently kind of... What's the kind of the pledge levels going to be?
So the pledge level for one game is going to be $29. Kind of thought about, other games in my collection that had similar components, similar sizes, and I figured that was a good... I figured it's a good valuation of the game. Any higher would have felt like, kind of overpricing people. I didn't want to do that. And any lower would feel like it's putting it on kind of a different pricing tier that I feel like wouldn't be fair to the design of the game and the components.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in terms of things like shipping, are you going to be doing kind of like the worldwide shipping? Is it going to be kind of EU friendly shipping, or will it depend on the kind of like the amount of interest that you get?
The logistics company that I'm planning to work with does offer friendly shipping to EU, Canada, Australia, China, and then obviously the United States. Cool. I know Hollywood is very US centric, so I anticipate most of my interest to come from the US, but I would not turn down backers from other countries. And I hope, it gets to a point where a lot of other people have interest in it as well. There are shipping tiers for kind of those main zones, but if someone outside that zone wants a copy of the game, I do hope that they will reach out during the campaign and we can try to figure out some kind of shipping solution.
Excellent. And have you got other kind of ideas? Obviously you've been working on this for a while. Are there other kind of games we can expect from yourself?
I hope so. Depending on how well this endeavor goes, doesn't leave me completely jaded, but I have a Word doc full of a bunch of different ideas. Let's see, the two ones that I really like right now are a social deduction game based where players are on the set of a horror movie where one of them is a killer and, is just kind of picking people off during the game.
Okay.
Just social deduction. You're trying to figure out who's the killer, who has the murder weapon, but you can also move the weapons around to try to frame someone else. I'm considering having it be a timing based game. So the first round is 5 minutes, then 4 minutes, 3, 2, something like that, where it plays pretty quick. So it gets pretty tense in a fun kind of way. I always love social deduction games, so I would like to kind of come up with one. Then I also have another idea that is that I think will be really cool. Is kind of a fighting game. I don't know if you've ever played Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is kind of a superhero style game.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. Yeah.
So I have an idea where it's team versus kind of an AI enemy, but the premise is the major holidays have turned evil, and now all of the minor holidays have to rise up and fight them. So it's this horrible, corrupted Santa being fought by Flag Day and Arbor Day, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of fun potential there, and I have some good design mechanics.
As long as everybody ends up turning around on Columbus Day and beating them up, that'd be fun.
yeah. Columbus Day should be the one who's behind it all.
Yeah, exactly, that should be it. Kind of thing. What you do now, I'm just going to wonder about islands being a general kind of pain in the ass. Well, that sounds really good. If people have listened along tonight and they want to find out more about your good self, where do we find you on the internet webs, Mr. Sadiq?
So I have a Facebook page that's a rap game, Instagram and Twitter, which I still don't understand. And those are both under my company name, Diacritical Games. And then you can also go for the website for the game is up, that'sarapgame.com. Yeah, find me on Facebook. I'm always trying to talk about the game because that's what you do. Try not to be not in an annoying way, but I always love when people reach out. Someone actually I really like this. A local designer reached out recently and he's like, hey, I came to a game design night that your group was hosting a while ago and I played your game and I've been following its development since then. It looks super good. Do you have any tips on how, I'm working on a game too, and what tips and things do you have for me? And just the fact that someone would think to reach out to me like that was so flattering. And I love giving advice too, so it's a fun thing.
Well, what we'll do is we'll take all those links and we'll put them in the show notes so that we've got
awesome.
Notes to
Thank
show.
you.
Okay, and we'll also make sure that the Kickstarter link is there as well, so everybody who's interested can have a look and they'll hopefully have a pledge. If you want to keep an eye on what we're up to, go to the Google, search for We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on our website, we'renotwizards.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook is We're Not Wizards, YouTube is We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast for some reason. We're on all the podcast catchers of your choice and the ones that you don't decide to use as well. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com. Yes, I am aware of the email address and its irony. That's why I chose it, because I'm hilarious. But you can find us on Stitcher and Speaker and Acast and Spotify and Google Podcasts and all these Castbox places and just everything that has the word pod in it. You know, we're there for some reason. People email us all the time saying, we've put you on our podcast thing. And I'm like, thank you very much. And then I leave them alone. If you like what you've listened to tonight, there's 2 things you can do. Tell somebody, you know, just say, hey, do you like podcasts? And they go, yeah. Do you like tabletop podcasts? They go, yeah. Do you like tabletop podcasts with annoying Scottish people who like the sound of their own voice? Maybe. Okay, well, you know, send them our way. The other thing you can do is you can go into Apple Podcasts and you can consider dropping us a subscription or a rating or a review. If you are going to give us a rating or review, don't give us 10 stars. I know it's the same old joke, it's 2019, but it's the only joke I know. But just don't give us 10 stars because it makes us big-headed. But don't give us 1 star because it makes us sad, like Michael Caine doing his broken voice. Give us something in the middle, like a 5, because it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average tonight is the kind of the Oscar-nominated, kind of Grammy Award-winning game design Spiel des Jahres nominee brilliance that is Adam Sadiq. So thank you for coming along, sir.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've had a blast.
It's good. There's only 2 more things to do. First thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Adam?
No.
That'll do.
We are not wizards.
Fantastic. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Adam. Say goodbye, Adam.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe. Roll6s.com. And Oscars are on their way, and if you fancy something to play while the Oscars are on their way, or something to back while they're on their way, then check out That's a Wrap. But until next time, that's a wrap. Bye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.